Well, hello, creatives, community, kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. But I gotta admit, sometimes, just sometimes, this role playing game kind of stuff makes me sick. And of course, it should make us sick because guess what? Today, we are world building with diseases, parasites, viruses. Yes, I hope to make us all just a little bit sick. All right, well, listen, we're not really sick of it. In true tabletop RPG fashion, this channel talks about a particular subject, and yes, this week's subject is diseases, parasites, viruses, whatever, infestations, whatever descriptors you have and definitions you have, we're going to take them and use them, and we are going to build a world in which it is shaped by those very things. So, the rules of today, let's get together and build a world, and also ensure that this is the thing that is shaping our world. Whether it's an event or a background element or something, this setting is one in which diseases and parasites are like the major focus of this world. Now, we did bring up a number of ideas from before Monday and Tuesday, because we take the subject and we spread it out all week. So just be aware that we may go over some of these items, but effectively, every World Building Wednesday episode is like a setting you can steal. Now, I do want to bring up a couple of comments from those who have responded to the past videos. Someone named David Hager says, you brought up folklore right as I was about to make a comment about it, but in our world, at least in the States, Three Billy Goats Gruff is a pretty common children's story, and trolls aren't even real. In a world that had actual trolls and other worldly threats, I feel like the fables, nursery rhymes, etc. would have some tips on how not to die. And I think he's referring to the fact that sometimes there can be nursery rhymes, or even though people have misconceptions about how a disease or virus or something progresses, or how it goes about the world, it is usually anecdotal. So, for example, from what I understand, for example, the Black Plague was spread by fleas, which got the disease from rodents. Now, it wasn't the rats specifically that caused the spread of the Black Plague, but by eliminating the rats, it got rid of the fleas. So, despite the fact that they were wrong, they were right. And so there could be various types of remedies, or I'm imagining this world having people are suffering so much from probably multiple vectors of various diseases and things that there are precautions made, and there might even be little rhymes or something like wash hands twice and wake the next day feeling nice, or I can't come up with something off the top of my head, but you get my point, right? And I'm sure I'm in my head right now, I'm thinking of the ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, they all fall down, and many other nursery rhymes and things that had to do with basically death. And I don't know, there's another one about the cradle in the branch and falling out of the tree or something and bringing out your dead. Anyway, they're pretty dark if you take a look at them, and you could really steal. I think it's a great idea to steal from something like that, to add to this world. For some reason, and I don't know if you guys are thinking about this, but this world just seems to be, for some reason, I'm just picturing it being like muddy and gray, because with so many people being sick and the threat of being sick, that the little things in life probably will fade to the background, making sure that the roads are well tended, and, washing your clothes and being pristine and things like that are probably very rare and probably just held for the only the highest levels of society, and everyone else is probably beaten down and downtrodden and have had multiple deaths and seen and had multiple deaths in their own family and friends. And the idea of people being stacked, in wagons in the street and dumped in pits and set up their homes set ablaze and that kind of thing, I think would lend itself to the background of this world. And I'm just saying this from the mundane parts of it, meaning like what we would consider real world parts. When we come to the arcane portions of the world, maybe, or the more fantastical elements, again, the idea of like George R. R. Martin's world of within the Song of Ice and Fire had grayscale, where people were slowly transforming, and I could imagine there might be something where your skin starts to peel off from a particular disease and you'll turn into a troll, or lycanthropy might be something that spreads amongst humanity, and people that lock themselves away into these dark places to stay along along the world, could be a thing that is very possible, especially on roads. And if people start to exhibit signs of lycanthropy or trollism or something like that, you got to be careful of that. Hey, thank you, um, Madden Madinthagi. I hope I'm pronouncing your namesake there. But I'll call you Madden. So thank you very much, Madden. Now, the another aspect to this world building today, world building Wednesday, and developing a world that has disease in it, it behooves us, because we talked about this yesterday, about the mechanics of healing diseases and parasites and things, that instead of just having, cure disease and you're done, to have many. Harry, thank you very much for the thumb. Not exactly sure why your thumb is so both long and nubbed, but whatever. I appreciate it. But in all honesty, this world may have various levels of disease. There might be some that are very common to alleviate, while there may be many others that require, or might nearly be just invulnerable to the commonality of just, I'm going to remove disease or remove curse. And again, and I brought up, I actually said something by mistake, which could fit into this world, that every disease or parasite or infestation does not necessarily need to be exactly what it's called. So in folklore, and maybe in this world, a remove curse is necessary to remove an affliction rather than remove disease or cure disease. The same goes for a parasitic infection might require curing a poison or some other aspect, and there might be we could include a randomized table or an arcana check of some sort or something in this dark fantastical world, to see if the healer actually becomes a carrier of the disease, whether the person healed is just is just asymptomatic. What the cantrip of become asymptomatic, and basically removing the symptoms but not necessarily removing the disease, and still continuing to have that. And of course, we have the narrative aspect, in which someone coming up and laying their hands on you in this world might only be temporary, but using salves and other remedies, maybe there are teas and tinctures or injections or some other methods to remove the disease might be necessary to make it permanent. Whereas someone who comes over and lays their hands upon you to remove a condition or something, it's really just a temporary. It's just a temporary fix. Now, we could combine this with the very tropey, very tropey zombie infestation, or you know the we've seen this so many times where zombies take over the world and people are just trying to survive, and we could layer that on top of this world as well, making necromancy and zombieism a natural result of those who die in this world. And so those who become infected not only just might kill over and die, but maybe, just maybe, much like The Walking Dead, maybe everybody's infected, period. Like everyone. And whether you die from natural causes, or you die for being stabbed in the chest with a spear, maybe everyone wakes up and starts to change and transform. I suppose you could even include non zombified afflictions. I believe, let's see, there was a comment made by M. I'm going to butcher the MK Rawick, McCrawick, MKRAWEC. Sorry if I butchered that. Says, goes on to say, I like the notion that the various oozes and slimes might come from people suffering a magical disease of one of the humors. Let's see, it says a disease of the black bile creates a black pudding, yellow bile creates ochre jelly, phlegm creates green slime, and blood creates a gray ooze. Jokes, he says, no, that last one's not a good color match, but I ran out of oozes. Which, hell, you could, well, first of all, you can make whatever color you like, which I'm loving that. Loving the idea of the humors, where the things that are the very things that are nasty in our Dungeons and Dragons, typical fantasy world, are coming from infestations of ourselves. So, like seeing a dead body or like a dead carcass of an animal, like a cow or a pig or something, is basically evidence. Like, oh shit, what the hell's around? A dead pig. That means there's trolls. A dead cow, and what is that, green coming out of its body? Oh, you know what that means, and and you can fill in the blank. Like, that means we got goblins. We better watch out. And so, as a matter of fact, maybe even more than a handful of those monsters out there might, by their touch, their bite, their saliva, whatever the case may be, hell, even eating or drinking food from an infested animal itself might be a threat to the PCs. And may only be very few enclaves that have kept themselves clean and pristine and disease free. I'm imagining trained dogs or some other, like dire wolves or whatever, wargs or something around city gates that can actually sniff out certain types of infestations and diseases, despite the fact that someone may not even be showing symptoms. And then, like, the old lady clutching her basket of cooked baked bread or something to her chest is trying to sneak into the city, and the guards are like, hold her aside, and everyone's like, what are you about to do? That's my mommy, or grandma or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, they get ready to, the dogs surround her, and the city guards are like, make sure she stays away from everyone, and they're about to throw oil on her and burn her to death, like, alive right there in the road. And then maybe her skin sloughs off and she becomes some nasty creature, like I don't know, what's a really good one? We got to come up with a really good descriptors of something. Maybe like a harpy or whatever, like her skin sloughs off and wings sprout out from where her hands should be and whatnot. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, a lot of these things could be symptoms of this diseased world. Harry says, would not that be from where healing and cures comes from? Meaning a cleric comes from a deity followed. Meaning, like, so I'm going to guess you're saying that, okay, in all editions of, say, Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, what of those, like Typhoid Mary? So, okay, so I'm you've just to me you've brought a number of things together. For example, there are the idea of people being sin eaters. So, like those that heal others, but they take on the afflictions of the person they're healing, at least in some cases temporarily. So for someone, for example, small child breaks their leg, healer comes up to heal the small child, and then they suffer the pain, if not the actual breaking of the broken leg, at least temporarily. I could see you well, first of all, you can easily incorporate that, just make it narrative, right? There really is no, you don't lose any hit points and you're not really weakened, but you're describing it as waves of pain and affliction coming along the skin. And it could be that clerics, or at least those who heal in this world, and they don't have to be clerics, they could be any class that heals, maybe they do have the scars, walk around with the scars of those they've healed. And despite the fact that they themselves may feel perfectly healthy, those the scars of disease and pain and stuff may ravage their bodies, and so they're like the storm cloaked ones and stuff, trying to cover their faces and stuff, wrapping the scarves around their faces, and bandaging their arms and hands and fingers because they're so pus filled and bloody and stuff. I could see that being a part of the character class. Like, the idea of a paladin being in silver armor and stuff is probably not going to be in this world. But someone who's dressed in like stained, like rusted armor with pieces and chain pieces, links have fallen off of it, and some of it's, kit bashed together, and the paladin's lay on hands. He's got this one hand that looks like it's gnarled and blackened and almost got a palsy to it and whatnot. And in a time of battle, he can like really grip his sword and like kill evil, but out of battle, it's like this. It's almost like almost as if it doesn't even belong to him, like it's shriveled and blackened. And then when he heals, you can see the skin split, like overcooking a hot dog on a grill or something like that. Yeah, I could see a dark form of this all throughout the world. Hell, rangers might be tasked with putting down the innocent and slaying people. Sorry, that's a kitty in the background, and she's deaf, so I can't even call her to me. But the idea that rangers are not just hunters of evil, but maybe they're there to put people down, and some of those people might be considered innocent, but yeah, they may be a different form of, like the CDC, maybe getting trained as Tesla's dad joke was like, what do you call half man, half horse clerics of the life domain? The centaurs for disease control. And so maybe that's a real thing in this world, that they're like centaurs living out in the wild in these like dead forests. Because remember, infestations don't have to just be with humanity. They can infect plant life and other kinds of animals. So, dire forms of animals might be crazy due to like rabies and other kinds of infestations. As a matter of fact, who's to say that many of the random monsters that are scavenging around the world, aren't they themselves carrying parasites, and those parasites are dangerous for other things, like I don't know what's a dragon turtle, pushing its way through a deep swamp, but overhead are circling like vultures or ravens or other carrion type birds, knowing the dragon turtle's about to die, and one of the dragon turtle's eyes is like milky white, and you could see worms and other kinds of things growing in and out of it. Its shell's kind of half cracked and whatnot, and the PCs are like, it's a dragon turtle plus. Like, what the hell is that? As they're like, yeah, we can kill things in this world, but we might not want to kill things, or we might have to specifically kill things in a particular way, or burn their bodies afterwards, because if we don't, it's probably going to chest burst and deposit something else out into the world, right? And so there might be this idea that just slaying monsters is not enough. You must dispose of them, because if you leave their bodies around, they're simply the the decomposition itself. Something internally may eat them from the inside out, or some other kind of parasite or something will feed upon it, making the world even stronger. Dead Man says, "Take my strong hand" from Scream 2. His strong hand is deformed. I don't. Why don't I remember that from Scream 2? I thought I saw it. But yes, absolutely. Player characters that have like a deformed hand, or maybe this is a thing in the world. Let all player characters have to pick a sign of affliction. So maybe a sorcerer or wizard in your world has milky white eyes as if they are blinded, but they air quote see, but in a different manner, even though that they are blind in this world. Tesla's like, I think you mean Scary Movie too. I don't remember. I remember it, but I can't remember what movie that was from. There's also the idea that maybe, just maybe, you can tell a wizard's power by how many pieces of their body are missing. So, extremities start falling off: ears, fingertips, toes, a hand, and whatnot. And the more power they have, the more their body starts to like fall off, or have to be amputated. Oh, Scapo says, hey, yeah, it was a scary movie. Okay, that's all right. Just as a side note for those out there, the show is simulcast on Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. Yes, absolutely. The show gets punched out. It is TriCast over. If you are a Discordian, please join the Fantasy Grounds College Discord, and they would love to have you, and especially help teach you about, the virtual tabletop fantasy grounds. But that being said, we cool kids are hanging out in the boiler room. So on the left, if you slide past all the administrative offices and you slide down past all the classrooms, you get to the boiler room, and that's where we're down there. I can neither confirm nor deny that we are down there smoking weed and drinking booze. But yeah. So anyway, let's get back on track. A diseased world may also, there's this idea that some people are afflicted with something and they become stronger due to the affliction, at least temporarily. So maybe, just maybe, like a juicer from Palladium games, it could be that every player character who is enhanced, basically, a level 1 character and beyond, someone who has special capabilities, someone who has magic, psionics, who knows, heck, even technology or something, maybe it is a guarantee that your player character will die. Maybe their life expectancy is at the most 3 to 5 years, period. Like, you're playing a game knowing that your character will die, period. And so now you're on a mission to fulfill whatever it is you could not do. And that could be finding a cure and giving up these weird, infested, but extraordinary abilities, meaning like maybe some kind of parasitic infection numbs your pain centers and you don't suffer, you become stronger like a barbarian or whatever. Or maybe there's this idea that an affliction, as the worms infest your gut or into your brain or something, that all of a sudden you become far more open to the weave of magical energies or something, but you're still infested. And so the rest of humanity trying to survive on its last really will not help you out. Like, they're like, you need to be quarantined at a minimum and killed at best. But the player characters are still out there. So starting a world in which you're session 0 and say, listen guys, all of you are are suffering something, and you will die in 3 to 5 years at a minimum. That might be a really strange and morbid, but maybe even a hopeful message in your world, because people often ask, if this was your last day on earth, what would you do? And maybe the player characters, that's what they're trying to do. Maybe they're not trying to gain levels, but they're trying to get back home to a loved one, or fulfill a duty from a lost family member or friend, and take their ashes somewhere, or any number of things could happen. Maybe they are there to sit upon the throne that of a dead society or something. Like, all the people have died and gone, and the city state is completely empty, but they want to travel 1,000 miles back there to just one day just sit upon the throne just one time or something. Or maybe they're out to kill somebody. Hey, that person wronged me, and you know what, doesn't matter if it's a suicide mission, I'm dead anyway. So yeah, I think that would be a really good. There's some story element, I think, to it, and you would really have to have your players embrace the idea that they're going to die. And now the complicated part would be: is there just one affliction in this world, or are there multiple ones? And what are the symptoms? Now, of course, using our own real world analogies, we've got 1,000 diseases, and 1,000 upon 1,000 viruses and bacterium, and parasites, and all kinds of infections and infestations and symptoms thereof and whatnot. So coming up with like two handfuls, and how so many of the things in the world come to be, I could see it. I could see it becoming a real thing. And absolutely, positively, we got to have some body horror. We have to have tons of body horror, especially with the fact that instead of the big evils being quote unquote out there in the world, meaning I'm going to leave my farmhouse and take my rusty sword and a small backpack and go from a zero to a first level character. Instead of that, to me, this really smacks of those things coming to rest at home, meaning loved ones, having a bite mark from some kind of rabid animal, and they come home and they have sweats and they're pale, and they're looking at you as like, please help me. And if I don't get a cure for this person, or at least alleviate the symptoms, I may have to kill this person that I feel that's true to me. This person that I've come to care for and love, or I'm trying to protect them from the mob outside who wants to kill off anybody that shows symptoms of anything. And so I think there's a lot of story elements to that, especially if this person is, much like the werewolf vampire stories where the person begins to transform. Maybe this is the very thing as well. Other kinds of undead, like ghosts, banshees, the ephemeral undead. Maybe they are disease disease carriers as well, meaning that someone could die horrifically, and then floating out of their body is like a nasty, not like a noxious gas, almost green and blackened, and it's like smoke that slips under doors and tries to slip into the mouths of sleeping babes or something like that, and yeah, just a lot of body horror. Of course, me, I love chest bursters, but much like Mick Rawick said in a comment, that the various humors could be the progenitors of various types of oozes and things. So in an open market, as people are like shuffling around in their dark depression, I don't know why I'm thinking this world is always overcast. It doesn't have to be, but gray and overcast kind of comes to mind as a background theme. But anyway, as a setting element. But okay, so everything's brown and blackened and gray, and dirty and grungy, and then someone in the crowd starts to like cough, and everyone like kind of stops and looks at them, and they cover their mouth, and the person coughing's trying to take a dirty rag and cover their mouth, and all of a sudden it's like green bile comes out, and everyone's like, and everyone gets ready to run, and like maybe there's like guards in the background, armed with like oil and torches to burn their bodies, or maybe sacks of salt to spill over their dead body after they kill this person. But it's too late. The green bile bubbles forth out of their nose and mouth, and their body starts to convulse, physically, and it seems like they're almost their body begins to implode as their bones break and their eye bursts, and then all of a sudden the green spills out, and that just enough of that green bile hits someone trying to run away and hits their heel, and they look down, and you could smell the acidic burn as the green bile, goes to this person's heel, and they're running, and they're like, help me, and maybe one of their own friends pushes this person down on the ground, and the green starts to spread across their body, and then they themselves, they start going into convulsions, and their eyes, roll in the back of their head, and then yes, chest burster time, right? I'm liking it a lot. Maybe the piles of dead, the pits full of feces, the people throwing their feces out the window. Humanity could be causing their own problems with a world built around disease. It was in a real sense our own fault by just being uncleanly with things, and maybe that's just the normality in this world. So even errant piles of feces may be breeding grounds for other things. That dragon turtle might have crapped out a whole, a couple of man-sized piles of feces that are like hives for insects or some other kind of infestation as well. Maybe there are like hags and other things in this world. Maybe there's a the there's a blurred line between the monsters you would normally kill out in the dungeon and the NPCs, so that at a moment's notice they may transform from one to the other, or it is the lesser of two evils, so that maybe there's a group of people, and they are infested, almost like they are walking around, but they're like hives for insects or something, that have, their backs are hunched, or their stomachs are held with a robe, or their arm is strange, but actually there's insects that crawl in and around, flying, buzzing insects that feed on their flesh, but also in a strange kind of way are the very hives that are in their skin and their flesh and on their back are keeping them alive or something. And there might be different tribes that are villagers and things. Maybe most major cities are empty now, but there are small enclaves of people who have learned to, in a small way, live with their afflictions, if not cure them. And they are like the dangers in dealing with them, but they're also enemies of each other as well. Much like having, this same community could have trained rabid dogs, and for some reason the rabid dogs don't attack them, but if you meet these rabid dogs on the road, they sure, they're frothing at the mouth, attacking the PCs might be pretty nasty as well. I could imagine using a far harsher healing and recovery in this world, especially if it's necessary to have to use like a healer's kit or clean a wound, because darn near everything out there is carrying something in its claws, or its bite, or its stinger, or whatnot. Reflavoring and reskinning many of the monsters in the world and how they're used, meaning like maybe a giant spider that has a you imagine a giant spider grabbing its prey and encasing it in a web. Maybe people take their dead to the forest of the giant spiders just to get them wrapped up into a web, because if they don't, no one wants to see their dead one decompose on the ground or something like that. Or maybe people have just become callous. And when somebody dies in the middle of the street, they just step over the dead body and keep on going as if it's no big thing. And the what's left of the gods to have refused to answer people, there are small groups of people that are still clerical in nature and they believe in the gods, and everyone else is like, whatever, they're not listening to us. And so they're trying to go about doing last rites and or killing the undead as these people begin to shift and shake and walk yet again. I'm sure what I'm describing, there are elements of it in probably a many other worlds, and I could see it becoming it might be very depressing in many ways. Deadman says Elder Scrolls has the afflicted who have a disease created by Purite, uh, Puerity. I'm butchering, but I like the afflicted. So, stealing that from like Elder Scrolls or something, yeah, why not? And the afflicted, the fact that they are afflicted with a disease does not necessarily mean that they are that they're the only ones, or that their abilities are. I got it the first time. I don't even remember what it was, dead man. Welcome to the mispronunciation show. Give me a word, I will guarantee I will mispronounce it for you. Thank you very much. No, ooh, ooh, ooh. Sorry about that. Parasite. Yeah. Now I don't know who Parasite or what Parasite is. I've never played Elder Scrolls. I've seen it played, but I've never played it. Hello there, Acri. I don't know how to pronounce your acronym, but I will call you Acri from here on. Thank you very much for joining in on Twitch. Today is World Building Wednesday. We go live 6 a.m. My time, Eastern Standard Time, every day, and we take the subject and stretch it out all week long. So today on World Building Wednesday, we're building a world in which diseases and parasites and infestations, viruses and things are the main component of the world. Now, finding cures for things, yeah, Scott Poe's like, yeah, they need to bring out your dead guy. Oh, absolutely, bring out your dead, ding ding ding, bring out your dead. You absolutely need that, and hell, you could even. Okay, let me get a little bit morbid here. Instead of your classic, I want to play a fighter, I'm going to play a ranger, I'm going to play a warlock, you could absolutely positively re-skin and reframe all of those things. Like, maybe instead of a cleric, you're known as a gravedigger. Or instead of a. What would be what's a great reskin of a class that collects the dead in the streets or something? Like, maybe a paladin, of course they would not be called a paladin, but they are, or maybe a paladin's is better known as an executioner, but not in the sense of killing criminals, but maybe they go to this person they know their loved ones are dying and they're in pain, and this person is just there to end their lives very quickly, and mercy killings in many ways or something. Also, really, kiddies? I got a live show here. Oh, you need to cut it out. Sorry. Mike, what's going on? He says, how about the idea that the human race, the PCs, are the infestation themselves? Oh, so, like, okay, follow me down this rabbit hole. So, Mr. Bay is saying that much like transhumanism with like cortical stacks, that the player characters are basically just a personality, but they go from body to body, person to person, almost like an invasion of the body snatchers idea, and they ride around inside of the bodies of other people because they are an infestation themselves. I'm liking that. I'm liking that idea a lot. You could, wow, because especially if it has the problem where the body that they go into, it's a temporary kind of thing. Like maybe the body starts to decompose very quickly, or the person that they're inside of, their personality starts to deteriorate, or there is a show on Netflix called Travelers where people from the future are coming back to like basically save humanity, but they can only go into the bodies of those people that have died. So maybe the player characters can only infest someone who has died, and it's a blending of their own personality plus like shadows of the person's of the person's memories. So in one game, a player character goes into a young girl who ran away from their family or something, and then the next game they go into an old man whose wife just died, and he had just taken her body outside of the home and left it there for the for the bring out your dead guy to pick up and put into the wagon. Like each time could be something else. Maybe just maybe each person they go into has some form of limitation. It could be a very very visible type of palsy or type of affliction on the skin. It could be like a drug addiction. It could be some kind of neurological affliction. It could be, they have one eye and only one hand or something. And this could change from session to session based on the next body they acquire, and how that is done. That'd be kind of weird and kind of cool. Much like games. What's the classic Vampire the Masquerade, where you're basically playing, the evil person trying not to be. Maybe the player characters are part of that. Uh, Ancient peoples very much associated disease with evil, with demons and devils and that kind of thing. Player characters could come from the same place. That disease is spreading because of a great evil that humanity has perpetrated upon itself, and the PCs are the afflicted. I'm stealing that term. They are the afflicted, and they move from person to person almost the same way possession works, but they're actually trying to prevent this thing from happening. Although there have been times when celestial creatures have done the same thing, possessed people temporarily. So it could be the same thing as well, and I'm liking that idea. I'm liking that a lot. Eh, Now, if you wanted to even go even deeper, and this is more mechanically speaking, you could associate some form of metric for the PCs in terms of, okay, for example, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, they have examples for renown and honor as a seventh attribute that is a measuring attribute. Maybe, just maybe, the player characters have an attribute like, I don't know, not humanity, but I need a word to describe saving a group of people to keep them alive yet one more day. Like, not scavengers, but remnants or isolates or enclave or something like that. And each player character has a numerical value which represents the number of people, either directly or indirectly, the number of people that they're protecting and keeping healthy and safe. And based on what the player characters discover out in the world, they bring back food and water and supplies and medicine and a trained apothecary or an herbalist or something like that, and they bring these things back to their group, and then that number goes up and down, and then that number is a measurement of their ability to progress in the world, or get certain types of favors, or represents the, I don't know, represents the maximum number the PCs can heal and recover, or it represents a home base the PCs can return to fully recover from the injuries and afflictions they suffer when they go out in the world. And the people that are maybe traveling with them, or the small village they're trying to protect, it might be a balancing act of, we need to leave to support our village, but we need to be at the village to defend it from afflictions. And when we go out into the wild, we were unable to use all of our like healing or hit dice or something, but when we come back, we can use, more of it, or a certain number level or what metric that we have in the world to recover from things that normally on the outside we're unable to do so. So I don't know. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. Yeah. Harry says, sounds like the game State of Decay 2. I didn't know I was describing that. Sure. I'm going to agree to make myself sound brilliant. Uh, but yes, it very well could be a thing where instead of hit points for the PC, instead of classically like, oh, we're murder hobos and no, we have no attachments, those attachments, those ties, those anchors, those tethers to humanity may be the very thing that keeps the PCs from turning into the very infestation that they are themselves, right? Like maybe the people don't realize that the PCs are actually, they're not their loved ones, they are actually the infestation of their loved ones. And in order for them to keep their humanity about themselves, almost like they're martyrs in a way, that we're dead, we're already dead, we just don't know it yet. And so to keep a hold of themselves, maybe they need this metric of like tethers or ties or anchors or something, to progress in the world. And when enemies attack them, they suffer certain types of losses and whatnot. And I don't know, kind of depressing. In which I suppose, well, you could add in sanity rules as well as people start, but not sanity in the sense of seeing horrific things, right? Meaning, in the classic game Call of Cthulhu and other games as well, where player characters are exposed to very horrific events and images, and they might suffer insanity. Instead, I'm thinking you could have an insanity metric or measurement or something that happens like PTSD, that happens over a period of time, and that many people are succumbing to it simply because they look around and there's nothing left. Thank you, Dead Man. Dead Man says, Parasite is a dragon looking Daedric prince. I'm not familiar. I would have to see an image. I wish you could post images you can do that in Discord, but I wonder if you could I wish you could post images in the chats, but you really can't do that. Although I guess I could screen share an image or something, but I'll get in trouble for that. An idea could be that the player characters, much like the prediction, of of the players knowing they're going to die within 3 to 5 years. Yeah, Harry says you know, like stability, mental, or like a mental stability trait. I could see that. Where, in other words, the world will, maybe the basis is, you if you do nothing, it's a guarantee you're going to die from a disease, become infested with something, or go insane and either completely lose your mind or be driven to the point where you're going to end your own life. Like that could be. Yeah, thank you, Tesla. Like you could put links in the YouTube chat, but you need to have a wrench to do it. And Deadman says State of Decay is a video game. State of Decay 2 is a similar game, and maybe the natural state of this world is you will die, and pretty horribly if you do nothing. But the goal of the game, much like many post-apocalyptic games, or even noir, and I don't mean noir as in 1920s black and white detective show. I mean noir in the sense that through the darkness there are little hints of light. And so in this world there may be, thank you dead man. In this world there may be little elements of, yes, we could sit here and die, but no, I'm going to take these people and we're going to go to this fabled paradise that's on the other side of the mountains, on the other side of the swamp, which is also on the other side of the desert, which is on the other side of the archipelagos, which is on the side of the river world, land or so, riverlands or whatever, and that may be a realism in the world. And now, does this mythical paradise exist? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the idea is that you try to get there. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And the player characters are struggling against the very thing that will kill them. That you will die in this world. And everything around them is telling them that to sit down. Just sit down. Don't struggle. Don't fight against it. You will die. And so maybe each day the player characters get a point of something, like a point of, or they lose a point of mental stability, or they suffer a loss of, I don't know, constitution, or they gain so many points of something that when it reaches a certain threshold they receive a certain kind of notation or affliction or something. Like, for example, the player character who receives 8 points must lose a small digit from their fingers or their toes or their ear or their nose or something. When you receive 17 points, you lose a limb, or one of your eyes goes out, or you receive a mental affliction, or what have you, like memory loss or confusion. Like maybe the stat is building up, and it just builds up and it builds up, and the player characters must do things to bring it back down. And doing things to bring it back down could be physical, again, herbalism, apothecary, healing, finding cures along the way, scavenging for remedies. It could be psychological, talking people off the ledge, bringing a small light of happiness to a dark world. For example, in television and movies and books, the hero may go into a deep, dark cavern to fight off evil to get a treasure, and when he brings back that treasure, you reveal that it's not gold, it's not a weapon, it's not a gemstone, it's actually a stuffed animal because it was lost there, teddy bear or something, lost there by a small child. And story-wise, it's like, oh, isn't that great? But mechanically speaking, that might alleviate the affliction that's happening to the player character and those around them. And so you could mechanically make those things relevant so that it matters in the story. Dungeons and Dragons doesn't really lend itself to something like that, but yes. Yeah, Harry's like, you start conversing with something not there. Yes, absolutely. Maybe it is a blending of like hallucination, but also like a flashback slash soliloquy, where the player character is talking with their lost loved ones, and that talk itself, while outwardly seems like they're going a little bit insane, is a way for them to reconnect with their empathy, their emotions, instead of becoming apathetic killers in this dark world or something. And so, yeah, reskinning, for example, let's go back to the paladin or something, right? Or healer, some kind of cleric or whatever. Maybe for themselves, to recover for themselves, they kind of talk to themselves, and everyone thinks that they have a weird, strange affliction, but this is a gamified mechanical ability for them to recover at the whatever losses they've suffered, whether it's physical damage or something like that. Maybe the same individuals having fever dreams, and they have night terrors or something like that, but the night terrors are what grant them their abilities. Like, oh, you're trying to regain your spell slots, right? But in world, you're having these strange night terrors, or maybe it's even worse than that. Maybe the other PCs have to hold you down because you're frothing at the mouth and your body is convulsing or something like that, Who's to say? Or schizophrenia, multiple personality disorders. And believe you me, I'm not making fun or making light of very real psychological issues. As a matter of fact, you could even make the case that for people who are in your game, at your gaming table, who want to delve into those things and not feel embarrassed, or someone wants to explore those things at the gaming table, this might be a way to do it in a world where you're not the different one. As a matter of fact, everyone else is just like you in one way, shape, or form, right? And that's a good way to really embrace someone that you really want at your gaming table and go, dude, listen, a young lady, whoever, we want you to play, and we thought of this idea, we thought of this gaming world, and, I understand that people are like picking with you, but I don't know if you'd like to, play in a game world like this. I think we would really like to have you in the game and not feel like you're the different one. I think that'd be a great way to embrace people, a player that may feel a little bit on the outs, because a lot of games consider those aspects to be limitations. Like, you get points for it because you have some kind of limitation, as opposed to just reskinning it as a character ability. Deadman says Eclipse Phase has rules for mental breakdown and stability and instability. Yeah, you could steal that from any game. Dungeons and Dragons actually does have insanity rules. Eclipse Phase has it. Call of Cthulhu has those kind of things. And you could make up your own random table, or just have your players come into the game and say, okay, I think my character would suffer from this thing. Whether it is seeing something horrific and being paralyzed from it. Hell, there were many stories where Bruce Wayne suffered flashback trauma from visiting Crime Alley. Yep, Deadman says D&D has insanity in Ravenloft. Absolutely. And Ravenloft, while very gothic in nature, I think taking apart Ravenloft or Innistrad or what have you would really fit into this kind of gaming world as well. Now, I think one of the dangers would be, having too much depression in the world. I think that might be a hazard. You're going to have some lightness in this gaming world, and that could come from a traveler on the road who's like an entertainer, maybe a storyteller, maybe there's someone who the old grandmarm that makes small pastries out of various scavenged elements or something. Maybe someone finds a a small trinket that just brings some kind of hope, or heck, just a pain reliever to allow someone to pass on without suffering some kind of horrible affliction or something. So, yeah, absolutely. By the way, guys, RJD20 above my head, that is not my channel. That is an individual who is someone that I'm spotlighting for my Creators Conclave. They are individuals out there who are content creators, and while they may not have the largest number of subscribers and such, I think they deserve it. And these individuals produce lots of content, very high quality content, and I would say that I think you should like, share, subscribe, follow them as well. These content creators are not people that have reached out to me. They're not paid. They're not paid sponsors or something like that. I've reached out to them, so just be aware that it's my way of giving back, because people have treated me so well, and I kind of feel like, part of it is a duty, the other part is a little bit of a guilt. Like, you know what, I'm not the only person out here trying to be a content creator. I'm doing their thing, just adding to the voices in the tabletop RPG community. So these other individuals, a high tide floats all ships. They don't take anything away from me, and I hope I don't take anything away from them. Please, just visit them if you will. If for no other reason than if you really can't stick around for like an hour show every day, Monday through Friday, maybe it's far better to read a blog post instead and take some ideas from that. So anyway, guys, I am DBJ. I thank you very much for spending your valuable time here on this channel. I hope you're able to leave with just a little bit of change. Anyway, have a great one. Tomorrow is Third Pillar Thursday, the Third Pillar Exploration. We are still going to be talking diseases and parasites and infestations then as well. So join me then. Until next time, have a great day. See ya. Bye.